Okay, well, today we are being joined by Grammy Award-winning musician, two-time Grammy nominee, and owner of some of the best jumpers and shirts I've ever seen on Instagram in my entire life, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with Jake Silverman. Jake, thank you very much for joining us on Retrospect today. How are you?
I'm well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on, man. If you could just give our listeners a bit of a brief introduction into who you are, what you do, and kick us off with that, then we can start finding out more about you.
Sure. My name's Jake, Jake Silverman. I'm from Abingdon, Maryland, in the United States, and I am a chiptune artist, keyboardist, composer, arranger. Um, yeah, I've been studying music and performing music my entire life, and around 2018, I started this project.
So
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get past the fact that as soon as you go on your Instagram, Grammy Award winning musician, tell us about that because it's incredibly impressive. Congratulations from us on the entire Retro Dodo community. That must have been
Yeah.
absolutely wild. Talk us through, A, what it's like to be a Grammy Award winner, and B, what it must have been like being there and receiving the award and,
Yeah.
and, and everything leading up to that as well. This is, just tell me all about it.
Yeah. Well, it all started. It actually all started around when I started doing this project. I started uploading videos to Instagram of me doing these like video game covers with my organ like hooked up to Ableton as a MIDI controller. It was like this idea that I used to be an organ player also,
Hmm.
but that I kind of went a different direction like around 2020. But I started uploading these covers in like 2018, 2019. I just decided, you know what, I kind of want to do electronic music. Like before that I was like a really down the middle straight ahead jazz piano player, but it just kind of, I don't know, that whole career path just I kind of started to lose interest in that, and I it just didn't feel like I was contributing anything meaningful or personal. So I went this other direction, and pretty soon after I started uploading these covers to like Instagram and YouTube, the leader of the 8-bit big band, Charlie Rosen, um, was somebody pointed him to my stuff. I think it actually was a good friend of mine, guitar player named Conrad Reeves,
Hmm.
sent him my stuff, and then he reached out expressing interest in working together, and he really liked the Mennonite's Revenge arrangement. And it had turned out I already had like a draft written for that for big band for the college that I was working at,
That's
University.
handy. That's very
Yeah,
handy.
University of Southern California. But like big band is not. I've never been like primarily a big band arranger. So the arrangement was good, but Charlie made it a lot better,
Hmm.
and he expanded the arrangement for strings, and like it was like it's a fabulous arrangement. But like I kind of have a writing style that Charlie is more of a straight ahead like Broadway arranger composer. So I kind of was able to bring a unique style to Charlie's catalog that wasn't
Hmm.
previously there, with like like these interesting rhythms and harmonies, and it's like very much more fusion oriented than the stuff that he normally does. So we worked on this track together, and I was obviously thrilled because this is like I was just starting to do this, and I'm getting an
Hmm.
opportunity to collaborate with this band that's doing pretty well. And I went to New York. I think either 2019 or 2020. I went to New York to record the arrangement in person. I was playing the piano parts, and I did a synth solo, the whole 9 yards. And we recorded it, and I just thought that was cool. I thought that was going to be the end of it, like that We had a good. We might do another collaboration. Winning a Grammy was like not at all like, oh, this is gonna win a Grammy, like definitely like. So Charlie told me that he was. I tell people this story all the time. Charlie told me he was gonna put it up for consideration.
And
Um,
you're like, oh yeah, that's fine.
yeah, I was like,
Just chuck
yeah,
it in there.
cool. What, like, I thought to myself, he may as well have told me that he bought scratch off tickets for the lottery. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess, like, whatever. Like, and then, months later, the day rolls around where they're announcing the nominees, and I was like going through a pretty tough time at this time. Like, I was still trying to do this, like, as an like
Mhm.
trying to make this like artist career thing work, and I remember my dad saying to me, "They're gonna announce the Grammy nominees today," and I was just like, okay, like,
Okay, guys, yeah.
yeah, I remember that conversation and just like completely dismissing it out of hand. Like, there's like no. So then we get nominated, and I just like completely like lose it. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, just in utter shock and disbelief. So yeah, that was amazing. We got nominated. Then we went. It was in Vegas that year. It got delayed a little bit because of a bunch of crazy stuff happening with COVID. Like, there was a new
Mhm.
COVID variant, and like, which I'm glad they took the safety into consideration. So we went to Vegas. It was intense, man. Like, you never think you're gonna find yourself at a. I mean, especially me, like doing what I do. Like, this is, it's like a polar bear being dropped off in Brazil. Like, it's just like I felt completely out of place. Like, like I just had, it was to a certain extent, it was kind of weird. Like, it was like, I was like, what am I doing here? Like, um, so, so then they get to, we get the whole day, you're just like on edge, like, what's gonna happen, and then you get into the room. It's this massive room, and there's this like crazy like graphic that goes up on the screen with this loud, like this insanely loud, like noise that like comes in before every category. Like,
Every
if
time
I
that
had,
happens, you're like,
if
oh
I
my god,
had, if
oh my
I had
god.
heart problems, I think it could have been a serious medical concern. Like, I was already just like, it was so insane. So then they announced. I mean, then we got up, we won, and I almost tripped up the stairs to get the. It's on video. To get to go accept the award. Um, yeah,
I love watching the video like on your Instagram. So if for anyone who wants to go on and to the Button Masher Instagram and see you going up there and doing that, like I watched it. I mean, I've seen it before, but I watched it a couple of times before coming on here because it's just such a wholesome moment. It's lovely
yeah,
because you are so excited and
yeah.
obviously, I mean, who as a child beginning to play music and learning music, like when you were learning the organ and when you were sort of starting to compose and stuff. That's a pipe dream, isn't it? Winning the Grammy.
Yeah, it's really cool, uh and we did it again. So we'll see if we win this time, you know.
So
Um
you've entered again. You've been nominated again recently, right?
yes, this year. Um
Well, that'd be the dream, getting two up there, wouldn't it?
yeah, well, it's not impossible, but it'll be a lot harder this year. The competition is quite intense. We have Willow
Hmm.
Smith, who, she's incredible. Her writing is, and her submission is really. So I've never heard anything that sounds like it. Honestly, like, it's really good. Um, and we also have uh, John Legend's arranger is competing against us, and the recording is a John Legend recording. So, like, when people are
Right.
voting on this, that's what they're hearing, right? Um,
So who were you up against?
and there's like,
Who were you up
I
against
think
last
all the
time
not.
then?
Last time we had some really good competition last time too. Rodrigo and Gabriella was one that stood out last time. They're really popular. I can't remember the guy, but he did an arrangement of a Braveheart piece, and the London Symphony Orchestra recorded it. So it was,
Wow.
it wasn't necessarily a cakewalk last time either. But um, I listened to Willow. I think that's one of the things that really um, messed me up about this one. I was like, whoa, like we're up there with Willow, like, jeez.
Hmm.
But yeah. I mean, yeah. So we'll see what happens. I think our piece is really strong. We have Jonah Nilsson from Dirty Loops singing on it and playing, a synth solo, and it's just like a very dynamic and interesting arrangement, and I think it's got a chance. I mean, the other thing is,
Hmm.
to be completely honest about this, like the way that it works, like, is, I mean, it really, I think it's partially like how good your music is, but I think it's also like who you know. And I'm not the one with the connections in the recording academy. I'm a chiptune artist. Like, um, Charlie knows a lot of people and has a lot of, like, but I mean, he knows a lot of people and he has a lot of friends because he's really good at what he does, and like people know him for that. So, um, but we'll see what happens. It would be great if we won, but even just to have two nominations is a tremendous honor, and we're super lucky for that. And the other thing is, like, both of these are groundbreaking. Like, up to this point,
Absolutely.
like in terms of like video game covers, we have both the nominations in history. Like, nobody else has ever gotten nominated for an arrangement of a video game song. Because the guy who Baba Yetu, the guy or Christopher Tin, that's right, Christopher Tin, his piece, Baba
Hmm.
Yetu, from Civilization. That was the only piece of video game music that had won a Grammy prior to us. Um, but that's different than like
Wow.
an
So, like,
arrange. That's different than an arrangement, right? It's different than a cover. Ours
okay, yeah.
ours are
Hmm.
two arrangements that have been nominated, and the one that won. Those are the only covers that I can think of that have ever made it to the Grammys. And I mean, and now there's also a category for interactive media and video games. So like people, like, I think last year it was Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The composer, I'm blanking on her name, but she won last year with that.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a new thing. Yeah, it's cool. I'm happy about it. I'm excited about it. And it's definitely opened some doors. There are some people who have reached out to me that I don't really want to say who it is yet, but like, hopefully you'll know in the next couple of years. I'm working on something with a couple of guys who are very big names, I would say.
My
Yeah.
job is to try and get the Retro Dodo exclusives on this, so I'll try again before the end of the podcast and see if you can get you to slip up or something.
I don't. I'm keeping this one close to the vest.
No, you do right. You do right. You do right. Well, I'm excited to hear more about that as the months go on in 2025 and see what else happens. I mean, I was going to say to you, like, having two-time Grammy nominee has got to help with your musical career.
Yeah, yeah.
What first got you into wanting to write chiptune music then? Because this is quite new for you. You were saying a new journey. What was it that
Well,
made you want to sort of jump in and kind of start making this type of
yeah.
music?
I was raised on this music. If you grew up playing video games in the '90s or the late '80s, you essentially grew up hearing this every day.
Hmm. This is this
Um,
this is true. This is true. It's an integral
yeah,
part of our lives, isn't it?
yeah, it's a huge part of our lives, which I always find it funny how like even like people in the chiptune community like downplay this stuff as like being, oh, this is like so obscure, niche, like it can never be mainstream or whatever. But it's like there was a time where it was like the most mainstream thing.
Hmm.
Like or like it, at least like with video games, like it was like, you know, um, but yeah, I mean, I was raised on this music, especially Super Nintendo music. We grew up with a Super Nintendo. You know, I had friends who had Sega Genesis, and the NES, you know, and all of that stuff. So that was like in the background, and I'm still very interested in the music for both of those consoles and like the sound chips involved with the music for both of those. But the Super Nintendo, especially, like, it's like very near and dear to me. I mean, these are some of the earliest sounds that I heard
Mm.
in my life. Like, we had one when I was born. You know, my brother was 4 years older than me, so it's just something that's always been around. And there was a moment in 2018 where I was like playing the SNES. Like I always brought my. I mean, you know, I've been a retro gamer for a long time. Like I still play SNES games that I haven't played, and there's so many. You know, there's like
Hmm.
countless numbers like of games to play and check out. Not all of them are great. Some of them are terrible games with amazing music, and you know, like some of them
Hmm.
are great games with okay music. You know, like but there's so much to check out there, and you know, I was playing the SNES. I was playing Gradius 3, and I was like, it really like hit me. I was like, that is such an interesting sound. Like, there is no other music that sounds like this. Like, what if I like did something like this? Like, what if I made this like?
Mm.
And it took me a long time to actually get to like using the real tools to like make this stuff because initially, like, you know,
Hmm.
just going into electronic music with no background or anything, I'm just, you know, I am just like grasping for whatever is like, you know, whatever I can find and stuff. And yeah, initially I just couldn't. I was just like, you know, using like sound packs and like random samples and stuff that I found, and like, you know, it didn't sound very good. Like it took a long time for this to like, but around like 20, I discovered let me think, 20, maybe it was 2021. Yeah, maybe 2021, 2022. I discovered an artist named Schnaboobala, Sam Asher Weiss. I mean, he's probably, I mean, I don't, he's probably one of my biggest inspirations to date. I mean, that stuff like changed my life forever. The music that he's written for the NES, the SNES. He has an album on Spotify called SNESology. Um, and that was the stuff that made me realize,
Yes.
okay, like, or that was a moment where I realized there actually is something to like to writing the music like explicitly within the confines of what the original hardware could do. It forces you to
Mm.
write in a different way. Um, and like, yeah, I mean, yeah, with he taught me so much. Like he shared a lot. He's been dealing with some mental health stuff for the past few years, so he's been MIA
Hmm.
for a little while, but yeah, I mean, you know, he and others, there. I mean, this community is like really interesting. Like, there's really no other musical community like the chiptune community. It's just
Mm.
teeming with potential and talent and a different perspective. You know, you know, like there's a lot of electronic music, especially like this like new jazz wave of electronic music that all kind of sounds the same to me. You
Mm.
know, like this like lo-fi like jazz fusion thing that a lot of people are doing. I like it's cool. It's cool, but like the chiptune, the thing I really like about the chiptune community is like people, well, one, no one is like trying to get famous, so nobody cares about writing stuff that they think is going to be popular or whatever. They write purely out of passion, and
Mm.
I think everyone should do that because if you're choosing music for a career, like to begin with, you're already screwed. So like you might think that you're taking the safe route by trying to write a bunch of top 40 stuff or like whatever, but like we're all struggling. Like it doesn't matter what style you go into. I went into the least like profitable like if you lined me and three of my friends up and like we each told you what style of music we're like doing, people would probably guess that I'm the guy who like has a day job and isn't making any money and isn't doing anything. um and but it just doesn't work that way. So like but that's something I really like about the chiptune community is like they just like these young guys are just like going for blood and just like writing with like and really like reaching for stuff and stretching and trying new stuff, and like it's such a vibrant and interesting community. I've learned so much from like all of these like guys who are on this, and they're not on the normal social media. Like a lot of them aren't on Instagram, or you have to like really try to find these guys. There's a website called Battle of the Bits where a lot of these guys hang out and like participate in these compos where you have to like write a song in an hour and or like write a song in like 30 minutes, and like it's just like it's a really interesting. So like so to get to your question, like what it is that made me like really want to do this. I mean, first it was the nostalgia, like growing up with the Super Nintendo and like really tapping into that, and that's something like so deeply personal and something that's so ingrained in me. But then it was like actually like meeting the people who make this music and like getting to know them, and like I was like fully sold. Like I was just like complete, like I just fell in love with the whole thing, the community, the workflow, like the just like you know what it made me realize, like chiptune especially, is what you use to make music and the process that you use to make music is just as important as anything else. Like it really impacts the sound like so dramatically. It's like when I started getting into trackers, like that was like a totally new, and Sam was the reason I got into trackers, because that just like I was really scared to do it at first, but when I got good at it, I was like fully radicalized into like wanting to like just make music with this stuff, and it was just like such an eye-opening thing, but yeah, I mean that's my spiel on that. Yeah.
So I mean, you mentioned the NES then.
Yeah.
Would you say that the NES is like the main inspiration for a lot of the chiptune stuff that you do? I mean, and do you, when you're writing, when you're coming up with your ideas, do you break off for a little bit and do you play a bit of NES, or is it kind of all just up in your mind from the nostalgic childhood of growing up with like these iconic consoles?
Well, I didn't grow up with the NES, but learning to write for the NES, I think it's like a rite of passage for anyone who wants to make this music, because you have two pulse waves, a triangle wave, a noise channel, and then samples. And it's like, it's very confining thing, but to really make it, there are guys who can really, like Jake Kaufman, for example. I mean, that's the one everybody knows, but like that guy, I mean, with just everything that I just listed, that guy is able to make just stuff that you wouldn't believe. Like but I think you learn a lot of the techniques required to you hear this in video game music history. A lot of the stuff that was done on the NES got passed, like a lot of techniques got passed down and were used in other consoles and in other things. So yeah, in a way, it inevitably inspires what I do, but it's not like it's the SNES is definitely the thing that I've like spent the most time writing for, and it's like what most of my music is written for. But like the NES, well, I've spent I've spent a good amount of time with that music, and honestly, like I don't necessarily go to NES games for inspiration. It depends on who the composer is. Like Tim Follin, like that's everybody's, that's your meat and potatoes. Like everyone needs to, if you want to make like really good NES music, you need to be pretty familiar with Tim Follin's work, like the Mega Man soundtracks, those two. But I say Tim Follin, like the Mega Man soundtracks I think are great because of like they're great songs, like they're just great, like great memorable melodies and all of that. Tim Follin I bring up because of technique. Tim Follin in terms of technique, I mean it's just crazy what this guy was. And there weren't trackers or anything. There wasn't anything easy to write with during that time. I'm pretty sure they had to do everything in assembly, like. But yeah, I mean, the NES music, yeah, very, very impactful. I mean, and, like the guy I just named, Schnabubla, Sam Asher Weiss, I mean, he learned a lot of stuff from Jake Kaufman and Tim Follin. Like a lot of, like, what's that game? Solstice? That soundtrack is super crazy. There's like some ARPs in there. Sam was telling me one time that he like transcribed this by ear, this like insane ARP that like, I mean, thank God he transcribed it because, and now I use it all the time. But like, because I could never. It was just so crazy. But yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, NES definitely plays a big role. I mean, and I even now, like after studying that music and learning how to make that music, I'll use like ARPs and like certain delay techniques that I learned from writing music for the NES when I'm writing SNES music. So yeah.
I mean, you're talking about technique. I mean, I watched your chiptune Song of Storms. I'm a massive Zelda fan, so like I already knew that before I came on here, but. I watched that, and with that guitar, I mean, you looked like you were doing like a chiptune Polyphia track. It was mad. I mean, you were just everywhere, like, and I was just like, this. Technically, that's what I love about your stuff. Like, it's nostalgic and it's nice to listen to, but it's also technically impressive to watch as well. And
Thanks.
I think like that's like stuff that you are obviously the people that you've named thus far. Like, it's nice that. You've picked up things from working with these people, and obviously the influence of these people that you could put into your own music. But what I'm really loving about this is that like video games wouldn't. I mean, I love everything about video games. Obviously that's why we do Retro Dodo. But if you were to take the soundtrack from a video game and get rid of it, like they do when they show you like famous scenes from movies without the music, I don't think they would be as impactful, and I don't think we spend a lot of time thinking about how the soundtracks help with the adventure, or how they cement these pivotal gaming moments in our minds. So I'm really enjoying the fact that we get to sort of name some of these people that hopefully, the listeners and I can go back and check out more of their back catalogues, and then you think, oh yeah, that's the guy who did this part of this game, and that's the woman who did that part of that game, and you start to sort of unpack all these games from our childhood and just think about the work that went into them. So often we sit down and just play through something and then just put it on the shelf, and you don't always think about the producers and the musicians and the arrangers and everything that have gone into making them. What are you playing at the minute?
Right now I'm doing mostly like PC games. I've been playing a lot of Pal World. I really like Pal World.
And when you're playing modern games like this, do you find yourself kind of unable to switch off? Are you hearing the music and are you thinking?
I turn off the music and I listen to. I listen to whatever I want to. I mean, it depends. If I really like the soundtrack, I'll leave it on and I'll listen to it. I'm pretty picky though, especially with modern games. I'm even more picky. Like, I recently was playing Visions of Mana.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of the Mana series. I've been playing the Mana games since the 90s, since Secret of Mana. Hiroki Kikuta, great composer. He wrote the newest score for the newest Mana game. I thought that was awesome. But yeah, if I'm not vibing with the music, I'll turn it off and I'll listen to something else.
That's interesting. Because I was playing. Replaying Hogwarts Legacy yesterday, and we had Devin Graham on
Oh yeah.
a couple of episodes ago, and he was saying that one of his friends did the music for it, and I was playing and I was thinking about our record today, and I was just thinking, I wonder if you play modern games like this and just sort of think, I wonder what that'd be like in chiptune, and then then you
Yeah.
start like you put the controller down and get on the keyboard or get the guitar out and just start
Yeah.
like
Right.
playing
Right.
around, and I wondered how
Yeah.
like that kind of processed in your mind and whether it became one of those things where, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to just like separate work life from play life, as it were.
Yeah, I've done a lot of chiptune remixes of stuff. I'm kind of tired of that.
Yeah.
I kind of want to leave it to one per album now and just do that less frequently.
Mm.
Um, but I do like taking inspiration from things. If I hear something that I think is really really good and that I really like, I'll take some notes and try to I might try to emulate certain techniques that I'm hearing or whatever.
Let's talk about some of the soundtracks that you remember from your favorite games over the years,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
let's kind of like unpack those
yeah.
and see, what has had the biggest influence on you over the years. I mean, I still remember going into the Temple of Time for the first time and hearing
Oh
those
yeah, of
songs. I
course,
still
yeah.
remember all the songs from Banjo Kazooie.
Oh yeah, me too.
You know,
Those that was Banjo Kazooie was huge for me. I mean, I was born in '91, so the SNES was like definitely my initial exposure to video games and video game music. Um, but I spent a lot of time with Nintendo 64 games, like
Mhm.
tons, especially all those rare titles like GoldenEye, Diddy Kong
Diddy
Racing.
Kong Racing was such a
Yeah,
good soundtrack.
incredible,
They're incredible.
incredible. Yeah, Banjo Kazooie, Banjo Tooie. Um, yeah, I love those games. Donkey Kong 64. That's a pretty good soundtrack. It's David Wise. David Wise doing a bunch of this stuff. Like,
Mm. I've got
um,
all those up here. I'm looking at them as you're reeling them off, and
yeah.
I'm looking through Banjo Tooie. I'm looking through Donkey Kong 64. I actually put a note on here that some of the old stuff I was listening to a lot of your stuff on Spotify over Christmas, and I was definitely hearing like Donkey Kong Country in there. I was kind of hearing like to me, you could definitely if Nintendo said, "Oh, we're going to bring out the Zelda back catalog for the Switch," I reckon that you could be like, "Oh, do you know what? I'm going to come in and rewrite all this stuff." Like I can kind of hear those games and your influences
Hmm.
from my kind of perspective.
Yeah, I think the biggest inspirations that I have, as far as like, I mean, Kirby Superstar is massive for me. Like,
What a shout! That's a
I,
great game.
I
Yeah.
mean, well, that's what Meta Knight's Revenge is from. The thing that I
Mm,
won the Grammy for. But like, I got Kirby Superstar when it came out in
right.
1996, and like, I've played that game. Like the thing that's crazy is I've still like keep learning new things about that game. Like there's like all kinds of new secrets and like it plays a Sakurai made the Kirby games. The guy who made Smash made the Kirby
Hmm.
games. And the thing whenever I bring someone who's like new to play Kirby Superstar, I say just play it like you would play Smash Bros. And it works. They play
Yeah,
it
true.
like because the move sets and all of that stuff. It's like very similar. Um, but the music is unbelievable to me. And actually, now that I always thought it was amazing. I thought it was always like so insane. But now that I've actually like looked under the hood at what's like going on like in the soundtrack, if you like take the soundtrack in SPC format, put it in an SPC player, and you can actually see like all the channels, like what's happening. Jun Ishikawa rarely exceeds using 5 voices ever
Mm.
for the entire soundtrack. And he makes it sound like, a full orchestra. Like it's like a full like it's so full, you're never like, "Oh, this is kind of thin. This sounds like a little thin." Like no, it's just 5 voices the whole time and he is just absolutely crushing it. And he does that with like arps and delay and like all these other a ton of different techniques. Just a masterful sound, an utterly masterful soundtrack, you know. I mean, and also just like not just like that's like the chiptune side of it, but like the music itself, like the melodies and the chords and all of this stuff is just like beautifully written stuff. It's amazing. And
I
yeah,
think with
I mean,
some of these, go on. So you go on.
no, you first.
I think with some of these older games as well, like we had Jordan Mechner on, the guy who made the Prince of Persia games, and he was talking about making music for on the Apple II, and how there was, you only had beeps, but then him and his dad would work on the piano to try and modulate the beeps to create tunes, and how you could only have music at some point because there couldn't be music and movement at the same time, or there couldn't be music and chest opening sounds or that kind of thing. And I think sometimes when you have these limitations, you end up thinking bigger because you try to get more creative, and then you come up with new sounds. And I think like the limit. We were talking earlier about a musician we've done stuff with before called Remute, and how he makes music for different mediums on for SNES carts and PlayStation discs and 3DO and everything, and to work with sometimes these limitations that you end up thinking outside the box and coming up with something you would never have thought of had you just gone into a recording studio with 200 tracks and unlimited time and unlimited space. And I find that with your stuff as well. I feel like when you're going to do when you are doing your Chiptune stuff, obviously you're thinking about what can go where and how it would tie into the console that you're kind of maybe making music for. I mean, you've done music for video games too, right? Have you experienced anything like this before?
Yeah, I mean, well, I wrote this. The only game that I've written the full soundtrack for was Arzette. And I was working with the Sound Canvas VST. Like Roland Sound Canvas was like a MIDI module that a lot of guys used to write like PC gaming music in the 90s. It's not terribly limiting, so I didn't really have to think about it that much. I'm pretty sure I'm not sure how much polyphony it has. It's probably like 32 notes or something like that. But yeah, I mean, when I'm writing this stuff, when I'm writing my own stuff, like for SNES or PC Engine, you have to get really creative, on this track that's going to be on my next album, I wanted to have the kick on all 4 beats of every measure, right? But if you have a kick and a snare, that's 2 voices being used, and on the Super Nintendo, you only have 8, right?
So you seriously
yeah. So what I did was I made a sample that had a kick and a snare, so that I would only be using one. So in total for the whole track, I'm only using one voice for the drums. And you have that, that's like the kind of problem solving. That's another thing I love about this music, is like having to do that kind of problem solving to like make something happen. There are people who have sampled whole chords, like 5-note chords, make it into one sample.
Just so they can get one.
Yeah. And then you're using 5 notes with one voice. It's I mean, you hear that a lot in the soundtrack for Plock. That's another Tim and Jeff Fallen soundtrack. They did a lot of stuff like that. They got really creative on that. When I've written for game soundtrack, I've did a lot of work with limited run games for a few remasters and stuff that they did. Okay. I'm not really thinking about working within a set of limitations unless they're asking me to write something for the NES or something. I'm more just what do you guys need? What do you want this to sound like? And they send me a reference, and I try to match that as best as I can, And for the most part, that's a different skill set than chiptune. That's being able to listen to something and take notes, and then try to make something that sounds similar. And that's a big thing in video game scoring, because when you're working with a client who doesn't know music really, and can't necessarily describe very well what they want from you, the best you can get from them is a track, a track that they want the song to sound like, and then you try to remake that Yeah, or you try to like at least make something that's close enough, but not exactly the same. But it's kind of crazy. I mean, I don't really see if I get more work as a video game composer, that would be great. But I don't really see myself doing that full time. I don't really see that as my role. Like, I see myself as being like a jazz fusion artist who uses video game consoles as instruments. You know, that's really like
what a tagline! What a
yeah,
tagline! That's incredible.
That's really what I see myself as doing, and that's what people know me for. You know, people don't. Some people know about RZ. You know, like there's people like the soundtrack for RZ. So there's and a bunch of people have covered, you know, my songs from that in various mediums, but like. Most people know me for just like making this crazy like jazz fusion with like with different consoles, you know.
If you were to pick one game that you could sit and listen to the soundtrack through from start to finish, say if it was about to come onto Nintendo Music, for example, you know, what do you think that would be? Is there one that pops into your mind more than others, or?
I'll have to pick two. I can't pick one. It's either
you're allowed to pick two. That's fine.
Secret of Mana is definitely one. It's one of the most beautiful soundtracks ever. The samples used, it's utterly unique in video game history. That's one, and then Kirby Superstar. That's probably the other. You know.
Good choices, man. Good choices.
Yeah, those really stand out to me. I feel like a lot of people don't really give Kirby Superstar the credit it deserves in terms of the music. Like I just think the music is perfectly done, you know. And it's done in a way that like cuz the issue with Secret of Mana's soundtrack, as much as I love it, Hiroki Kikuta, he was very young. I understand when he wrote this. He uses all 8 channels a lot. So when a sound effect happens in the game, like the music cuts, like parts of the music will cut out because he'll, you know, like that. He'll just like butt it. But
I guess you can be forgiving, I guess, can't you? Because like that is there.
It is so the songs are so utterly gorgeous that I'm totally willing to look past that. You know, it's some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard. You know, still has profound impact on me to this day. You know, yeah. Those two, it's a tie.
It's a tie.
If I had to sit through one of the two, if I had to sit through one game's soundtrack, it's a tie between those two. I think the two consoles that I have the most history with and the most like fond memories of are the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo 64. You know, I definitely spent the most time with those. GameCube too. You know, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. That's like,
oh man, now you're talking my language. It was incredible.
They need to make another one. I don't know, like they keep making these weird new Sonic games that are just weird and don't make any sense, and they like bring back the Chow Garden. Like give us Sonic Adventure 3. Like bring you have the formula. This is what I don't understand. They, like all the time they're trying to reinvent the wheel. The people who make Mario, they get it. They're like, this works. Let's just like add a couple things and just keep putting these out over and over and over and over again. They get it.
So many times. They know it, yeah.
But Sonic, they haven't made a good Sonic game since Sonic Adventure 2 Battle.
Like you're passionate about this. I'm loving this.
There hasn't been. I'll stand by that. There has not been a single good Sonic game since Sonic. I mean, except for maybe Sonic Mania, but like these but that's not even like official. Like that was like a fan game, like or something like that. You know.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll be honest. This is one of my most controversial takes. I'm not really a 2D Sonic guy. I struggle with those games. I find them hard to play, and like it's like a very specific style that you have to kind of master. It feels like you have to have the whole level memorized to like really be able to play those games well. But 3D Sonic, like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, incredible. We need more of those. You know, that's Yeah.
I've always found like, I mean, I love the old school Mario games, but when Mario 64 came out for me, like that was it. Like seeing Mario in 3D it was just unreal. And the same for Sonic too. Like I feel like I had a SNES, but I came to gaming on the N64. So when I'm thinking when I'm thinking Mario 64, sorry, I'm thinking Donkey Kong 64. I love Donkey Kong Country, but for me, the 3D adventure. I mean, we've only ever had one 3D Donkey Kong adventure, which is mad. Like
Oh yeah.
I want
No,
more.
I said this earlier this year. Like the
Yeah,
Donkey Kong 64 was a masterpiece. We need
yeah.
another one of those. I think some people have judged it a little harshly because there's so many collectibles in the game. But I would love to see another Donkey. I was playing Donkey Kong 64 earlier this year. It's loads of fun. It's so much fun.
It's amazing, and like
Yeah.
again. So when I think back to soundtracks and stuff, I think back to these games as well. And you're right. Sonic Adventure, man, so good. And then again, when I'm playing Metroid Prime, I think you just sit and you listen to all the sounds in the background, and when you need a boss and the orchestra ramps up and stuff, it's just like nothing else. And I do kind of get that when I'm going through God of War Ragnarok now, and I'm listening to the soundtrack, and it's great, but it just doesn't have that kind of nostalgic kind of pull to me that the old ones do. And I guess that's why everything we do at Retro Dodo is retro, because it takes us back to our childhoods. And
Yeah,
we have,
I do find that like the more advanced that the tools have gotten for making music for video games, that games less and less have personality. The soundtracks less and less. But there are a few people who are able to get past that. Like there's this one young guy who I met through the chiptune community because he's a brilliant chiptune artist, but he's also like just an insane producer and composer. This guy Sean Bialo. Have you heard of this game Penny's Big Breakaway? It was
I have heard about
he
it. Yeah.
did. He did. T. Lopes wrote most of the music, and he did a magnificent job as well. But Sean is like, I don't think Sean will ever write music for a game that does not have like so much personality and character. And I think part of that is because he's studied video game music from top to bottom, like from where it started to where it is now. You know, super killing guy. Yeah, I do think, I don't know, like I just get bored with a lot of music that I hear in games today, especially stuff that's just like all orchestral or like all, I don't know. I don't know. I'm really picky and I have weird taste. It's not necessarily because the music is bad. It's just like, yeah.
When you do this for a job like you do, and when you spend so much time listening to stuff, I think it would be weird if you weren't picky. I think you obviously like have your, you get into you have your formula, I guess, don't you? Just like the Sonic guys should use the formula.
I like stuff that I like stuff that's unhinged, like stuff that is just like people, like you can tell the person just gives no fucks and is just like completely laying it all out there and not holding anything back or trying to please anyone. That's the kind of stuff that like really resonates with me. Yeah.
So you may have mentioned to me before we started recording this that you're working on a new project. You've got a new album coming out.
Right.
Tell us about that as we.
So it's going to be
prepare to sign
called
off from the podcast. Give us a bit
right.
of info about that.
It's going to be called Super Button Masher.
Mm-hmm.
It's a full album of music written for the Super Nintendo, like original music. It's going to be 11 songs. There are a handful of features on it. Sungazer, the band that I've been touring with, they'll be featured on it. Mm-hmm. Evan Marion and Dana Hawkins, that's another group. They will be featured on it as well. Mohini Day, incredible bass player from India, she will be featured on it. And Nicole McCabe, who's a saxophone player in LA, fabulous saxophone player in the band Thumpasaurus. Or not Thump. She plays with Thumpasaurus, but her main band is Dolphin Hyperspace. She's killing. You should check out that band too.
Absolutely,
That band
I will.
is really cool. and I'm planning on doing a song with them at some point, but not on this project. Uh, and then Amanda Baris, incredible singer who is going to be on American Idol this year.
Absolutely wild.
Yeah, so she's going to be featured on one of the songs. Yeah, it's all original Super Nintendo music, jazz fusion, like lots of crazy solos and time signatures and wild stuff. Like it's gonna be nuts. Uh I'm hopefully gonna be doing a tour on the East Coast of the U.S. for the album this summer.
Hmm.
Yeah, a lot
Any
coming up with that. Yeah.
any release date information as of yet,
No,
or
I
not
don't
yet?
have that yet. Nope. We'll probably roll out a few singles first, and
Hmm.
then the whole album.
And
But
where can
you can count on it around spring.
okay,
Spring or summer. You know.
and where can people follow you and get more information about that as and when the time comes, and kind of get see your back catalogue over the coming months before the release?
You should follow me on Spotify or whatever streaming platform you use to listen to music. You should follow me on Instagram. You can find me on Blue Sky.
Hmm.
I do have a Facebook. Um, I don't really use it very often. It's probably not the best place. YouTube. I need some help on YouTube, guys. Get over to the YouTube channel.
Okay, we'll do our best.
Yeah. YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. I mean, those are the best places. If you follow me on Spotify, you'll be very up to date on when things are coming out. But also, Instagram is where I'm most active. I'm also on TikTok, but you're seeing everything that you would see on Instagram on TikTok anyway. So
Awesome, and,
yeah.
I'm guessing like tour dates and things will be fine on Spotify and on your socials as well for people who want to come down and check you out when
Right.
you're playing.
Yep.
Amazing.
I have a band is in town. Also, you can follow me there.
I've not been on there in ages, but that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's a nostalgic way to end off, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jake. Thanks for coming on and chatting with us.
Yeah,
Good luck with
lovely.
the
Thank you
album.
for having me. Thanks so much.
It's been a pleasure, and you've given me another reason to go back and play Sonic Adventure 2 Battle now. Not that
It's
I needed it
one of the
anymore,
best.
but
One of the
thank you very much
best.
for that. So yeah, cheers, dude. Thank you, and yeah, we'll catch you soon.
Have a good one.